Did you know that ordinary Filipinos are running sophisticated spy networks right under our noses in 2025? While most people picture international espionage as something from James Bond movies, the reality is far more surprising, and it's happening in local communities throughout the Philippines. In this video, I'll reveal how everyday citizens are gathering critical intelligence using just smartphones and local connections. The Chinese government claims they've destroyed a Philippine intelligence network, but there's much more to the story. Stay with me to discover how this unprecedented shift in spycraft is reshaping Southeast Asia's geopolitical landscape in ways no one expected. The evolution of Filipino espionage. What if I told you the Philippines has become a hotbed for espionage that looks nothing like what you see in spy movies? Forget about James Bond with his fancy gadgets and tailored suits. The reality of Filipino intelligence gathering in 2025 is far more fascinating and effective than Hollywood could ever imagine. Traditional espionage typically conjures images of highly trained agents slipping microfilm under park benches or hacking into secured systems. The Philippines has pioneered a grassroots approach that's rewriting the rulebook on intelligence gathering. Instead of relying on elite operatives with specialized training, Filipino spycraft has evolved into a distributed network where ordinary citizens serve as the eyes and ears of national security. This transformation emerged from necessity around 2023 as tensions in the South China Sea escalated. Many Filipinos felt increasingly vulnerable, with Chinese vessels encroaching on Philippine waters and foreign interests vying for influence. Citizens began taking action. What started as concerned locals reporting suspicious activities evolved into an organized and effective system. The Philippines' formal intelligence community previously operated like others worldwide centralized agencies with professional operatives. The country's geography, over 7,000 islands stretched across strategic waterways, made traditional coverage nearly impossible. The solution emerged organically: leverage the population as a distributed intelligence network. Consider the fruit vendor in Palawan, who noticed the same foreigners repeatedly photographing naval installations. She mentioned it to her brother-in-law, a Coast Guard officer who flagged the pattern to security agencies, or the tricycle driver in Zambales, who overheard passengers discussing surveillance equipment while driving them near military bases. These individuals don't fit the profile of spies, yet collectively, they've created an intelligence web that's remarkably difficult to detect. Foreign intelligence agencies struggle against this network because there's no clear target to neutralize. You can't eliminate a system with no formal structure. When intelligence gathering becomes embedded in everyday life, it becomes nearly invisible to outside observers. The Filipino cultural context makes this system particularly effective. Historical experiences with colonial occupations and foreign interventions have fostered a deeply ingrained situational awareness among citizens. Filipinos are naturally observant, socially connected, and community-oriented, traits perfect for grassroots intelligence gathering. By 2025, this system matured into something sophisticated. Information flows through trusted community channels, getting verified at each step. The approach has proven adaptable to various threats. When Chinese maritime militia used civilian fishing vessels as cover for territorial expansion, Filipino fishermen formed their own counter-network. One fisherman near Scarborough Shoal documented unusual vessel formations and reported them through community channels, ultimately informing Navy operations without formal involvement. The cost-effectiveness is remarkable. While other nations pour billions into surveillance technology and professional operations, the Philippines has created a competitive intelligence network at a fraction of the cost. It's asymmetric warfare applied to espionage, using the inherent strengths of Filipino society against adversaries with greater resources. Foreign intelligence services have been caught off guard. Their training prepares them for professional counterparts, not networks where intelligence gathering happens during everyday conversations over breakfast or while riding jeepneys. The effectiveness became apparent in 2024, when Philippine authorities disrupted several major Chinese intelligence operations based on information from this grassroots network. Suspicious activity reported by condominium security guards exposed a surveillance operation targeting naval communications. Unusual purchasing patterns noticed by electronics vendors revealed a technology smuggling ring tied to foreign intelligence. The system has risks. Without formal tradecraft training, civilian participants sometimes expose themselves to counterintelligence threats. False information can spread, whether from mistakes or deliberate disinformation. Security agencies have developed methods to verify information without compromising sources. The ethical challenges are significant. The blurring line between community vigilance and surveillance society. The Philippines continues navigating these complex questions, balancing security needs with privacy concerns. What makes this system difficult to replicate elsewhere is its foundation in Filipino cultural values. The concept of Bayanihan, community cooperation for common good, provides the foundation. Citizens see themselves as community members protecting their country's interests, not as spies. This intrinsic motivation proves more reliable than financial incentives, driving traditional intelligence assets. The system has adapted to technological change. While professional services often struggle with rapid technological advancement, Filipino networks incorporate new tools as they emerge. Chat apps become secure communication channels. Social media becomes intelligence-gathering platforms, and smartphones turn citizens into real-time reporting systems. Marketplaces and malls. The new spy headquarters. The digital transformation of Filipino intelligence is impressive, but there's an even more surprising front in this invisible war. What if I told you that the most valuable intelligence in the Philippines isn't being gathered in secure facilities with advanced technology, but in the chaotic aisles of Divisoria Market and the food courts of SM malls? These everyday commercial spaces have become the unexpected nerve centers of a sophisticated intelligence network that foreign agents consistently overlook. In Divisoria, Manila's largest bargain shopping district, vendors who appear focused solely on hawking knockoff designer bags are actually conducting counter-surveillance operations with remarkable effectiveness. These market sellers possess a nearly photographic memory for faces, immediately noticing when strangers linger too long or ask unusual questions. Take Mang Roberto, whose tiny stall overflows with USB cables and phone accessories. Through years at the same corner spot, he's developed an uncanny ability to spot patterns. Last year, when a well-dressed foreigner returned 3 days in a row, asking oddly specific questions about the nearby naval headquarters while feigning interest in power banks, Mang Roberto quietly alerted his network. The foreigner never returned. The genius of this system lies in its complete invisibility. While Chinese intelligence operatives invest in sophisticated electronic surveillance equipment, they're being watched and cataloged by ordinary Filipinos behind counters stacked with mangoes and dried fish. Like an invisible web stretching across bustling marketplaces, these vendors operate with a natural cover no trained spy could replicate. They belong completely to the environment, making their observations impossible to detect. This human intelligence network extends seamlessly into the country's commercial heart, SM malls. These ubiquitous shopping centers found throughout the archipelago function as intelligence-gathering zones where security guards have become adept at identifying suspicious behavior patterns. They note individuals who photograph infrastructure elements, people who appear at odd hours, or those making repeated visits without purchases. The food courts transform this surveillance into an art form. Amid the clatter of trays and sizzling woks, the perfect conditions emerge for intelligence gathering. Food vendors serving hundreds of customers daily become human traffic analyzers, developing intuitive understanding of regular patterns and immediately recognizing deviations. The elderly woman serving halo might seem focused solely on shaving ice, but her eyes miss nothing. Not the foreigner who's returned 4 times this week, nor the unusual questions about nearby government facilities. Restaurant owners near naval stations in Subic Bay have refined these methods further. They identify foreign intelligence assets through subtle cues, excessive tipping, unusual interest in employees who work on base, or frequent questions about shipping schedules disguised as casual conversation. Rather than confronting these individuals, staff maintain their hospitable demeanor while documenting every interaction. Coffee shops near government buildings serve as information transfer points, where intelligence moves from observers to analysts without detectable exchange. A barista, remembering your usual order, might also remember suspicious foreigners photographing energy infrastructure across the street. That information reaches security services through seemingly benign channels, personal relationships, family connections, or community organizations. What makes these commercial spaces so effective is precisely why foreign intelligence agencies would never suspect them. The natural chaos provides perfect cover for observation. The regular flow of diverse people makes unusual behavior stand out. Most importantly, these locations leverage Filipino culture's inherently social nature. The tendency toward conversation and community awareness makes unusual behavior immediately noticeable. Street food vendors have proven especially valuable in tracking suspected operatives. Positioned at the same locations day after day, often for decades, they develop encyclopedic knowledge of neighborhood patterns. One I saw vendor outside a military facility identified an entire surveillance operation by noticing the same 4 tourists rotating through his location over 2 weeks. The Filipino integration of intelligence gathering into commercial spaces creates a system that's almost impossible to disrupt. No central node to target, no headquarters to compromise, no formal structure to infiltrate. The network is distributed across thousands of ordinary citizens going about daily business, creating resilience traditional intelligence organizations can't match. Perhaps most remarkable is how this system operates without formal training. Ordinary Filipinos engaged in commerce have developed intuitive understanding of what information matters and how to share it. While professional agencies struggle with information overload, this commercial network naturally filters intelligence through multiple human checkpoints, ensuring only genuinely suspicious activities receive attention. Bayanihan spirit, community networks as intelligence assets. Beyond these informal commercial networks lies something even more powerful. A cultural force that's been hiding in plain sight for centuries. The true strength of Filipino intelligence doesn't come from training or technology, but from a deeply rooted community concept that foreign operatives can never truly penetrate. What makes this system virtually impossible to counter is the Filipino concept of Bayanihan, a cultural value so deeply embedded in society that it functions as an invisible shield against foreign intelligence operation. This ancient tradition, symbolized in folk art by villagers carrying a neighbor's house on their shoulders, has transformed into perhaps the most sophisticated counterintelligence system in Southeast Asia. Bayanihan traditionally describes the spirit of communal unity and cooperation, and has organically evolved into something security agencies worldwide would pay billions to replicate. Family networks represent another layer that foreign intelligence agencies cannot penetrate. Consider a Filipino family with members working across telecommunications, banking, shipping, and government. When a previously unknown foreign company attempted to install equipment near undersea cable landing sites in 2024, a bank employee noticed unusual financial transfers. She mentioned this to her brother in telecommunications, who connected it to strange equipment installation requests. Their cousin in customs had noticed the same company importing specialized components. Within days, this family had assembled a comprehensive picture of what turned out to be a sophisticated signals intelligence operation. The genius of this system lies in its implementation. Neighborhood associations, originally formed to handle local concerns, now serve as frontline intelligence units. In Antipolo City, east of Manila, one neighborhood association created a visitor monitoring system to prevent crime. When several Chinese nationals began renting properties with clear sightlines to the nearby military communications facility, the association's text message alert system flagged the suspicious pattern within hours. A perfect example of Bayanihan principles applied to security. The Catholic Church, central to Filipino life, with approximately 80% of the population identifying as Catholic, provides another intelligence channel beyond the reach of foreign agencies. In Zambales province near Subic Bay Naval Base, a parish priest became concerned after multiple parishioners mentioned unusual questions from foreign visitors during confession. Without violating confidentiality, the priest alerted local authorities to the pattern, leading to the identification of a reconnaissance operation targeting naval facilities. Bayanihan spirit, community networks as intelligence assets. Beyond these informal commercial networks lies something even more powerful. A cultural force that's been hiding in plain sight for centuries. The true strength of Filipino intelligence doesn't come from training or technology, but from a deeply rooted community concept that foreign operatives can never truly penetrate. What makes this system virtually impossible to counter is the Filipino concept of Bayanihan, a cultural value so deeply embedded in society that it functions as an invisible shield against foreign intelligence operation. This ancient tradition, symbolized in folk art by villagers carrying a neighbor's house on their shoulders, has transformed into perhaps the most sophisticated counterintelligence system in Southeast Asia. Bayanihan traditionally describes the spirit of communal unity and cooperation, and has organically evolved into something security agencies worldwide would pay billions to replicate. The genius of this system lies in its implementation. Neighborhood associations, originally formed to handle local concerns, now serve as frontline intelligence units. In Antipolo City, east of Manila, one neighborhood association created a visitor monitoring system to prevent crime. When several Chinese nationals began renting properties with clear sightlines to the nearby military communications facility, the association's text message alert system flagged the suspicious pattern within hours. A perfect example of Bayanihan principles applied to security. Family networks represent another layer that foreign intelligence agencies cannot penetrate. Consider a Filipino family with members working across telecommunications, banking, shipping, and government. When a previously unknown foreign company attempted to install equipment near undersea cable landing sites in 2024, a bank employee noticed unusual financial transfers. She mentioned this to her brother in telecommunications, who connected it to strange equipment installation requests. Their cousin in customs had noticed the same company importing specialized components. Within days, this family had assembled a comprehensive picture of what turned out to be a sophisticated signals intelligence operation. The Catholic Church, central to Filipino life, with approximately 80% of the population identifying as Catholic, provides another intelligence channel beyond the reach of foreign agencies. In Zambales province near Subic Bay Naval Base, a parish priest became concerned after multiple parishioners mentioned unusual questions from foreign visitors during confession. Without violating confidentiality, the priest alerted local authorities to the pattern, leading to the identification of a reconnaissance operation targeting naval facilities. These networks gain effectiveness from their multi-generational nature. Extended families often live together or nearby, with strong connections maintained across generations. These established bloodlines and marriage connections create trust networks that foreign operatives simply cannot infiltrate. One security official explained, "It would take decades to place an operative in these networks. Even if you speak perfect Tagalog and know our customs, you can't manufacture the shared history that binds these communities." The sari-sari store phenomenon demonstrates how these networks operate at a granular level. These tiny neighborhood convenience stores exist on nearly every street corner in the Philippines, often run by older women known as nannies or lolas. These stores function as community hubs where information flows freely. A counterintelligence officer described how this system detected a sophisticated operation. A Chinese technology company set up an office in a residential area. The neighborhood Lola who runs the sari-sari store noticed that despite having 12 supposed employees, no one ever came to buy snacks during breaks. She mentioned this to her nephew and the police. That simple observation eventually unraveled a digital surveillance operation targeting government communications. Even the Filipino kisms, gossip culture, serves intelligence purposes. This informal information sharing creates a societal awareness that functions as a distributed surveillance system. Foreign intelligence services frequently underestimate how quickly unusual activities spread through these networks. Overseas Filipino workers extend this network globally. When several of W's in Singapore noticed unusual recruitment patterns targeting Filipinos with access to maritime infrastructure, they shared concerns through family networks, eventually triggering a counterintelligence investigation that uncovered a foreign talent spotting operation. The calendar of Filipino festivals provides additional opportunities for information exchange that appear innocent to outside observers. During these gatherings, intelligence moves through trusted channels without digital footprints. This cultural foundation creates an intelligence advantage that money cannot buy. While major powers invest billions in satellite systems and cyber operations, they consistently underestimate the effectiveness of these human networks operating on principles of mutual trust and community welfare. Digital frontlines, social media as intelligence tools. By 2025, the Philippines has developed a digital hive mind, a nationwide network of citizens who document, verify, and share intelligence through platforms originally designed for sharing family photos and memes. Like an ant colony where each member plays a specific role for collective success, this system evolved organically yet operates with remarkable effectiveness. The digital battlefield represents the newest frontier in Filipino intelligence gathering. While human networks may form the foundation, there's another arena where this island nation has quietly become a formidable player, with the average Filipino spending over 4 hours daily on social media platforms. What happens when the world's most digitally connected population transforms their smartphones into sophisticated intelligence gathering devices? The numbers are striking. With 92% of Filipinos active on social media compared to the global average of 60%, and smartphone penetration exceeding 85% of the adult population, the country has created the densest digital surveillance network in Southeast Asia. The power lies in how ordinary citizens repurpose consumer apps for national security purposes. Take Roberto, a fisherman from Palawan who once used his smartphone only for weather updates and family calls. One morning in 2024, he spotted unusual vessel movements in disputed waters. Within minutes, his smartphone photo and GPS coordinates reached Project Meta, a network of maritime workers using encrypted WhatsApp channels to document Chinese vessels entering Philippine territory. "We have eyes everywhere now," explains a Philippine Coast Guard officer who requested anonymity. "Before, we'd detect a vessel hours after it entered our waters. Now we receive multiple smartphone photos, precise GPS coordinates, and even behavior patterns within minutes." These digital networks follow an intuitive hierarchy. The first layer consists of hundreds of small community groups reporting unusual activities. The second layer verifies information through multiple sources. The third includes trusted community leaders maintaining informal connections with official security channels. This creates a filtering system separating valuable intelligence from noise with remarkable accuracy. What's striking is how these networks have developed sophisticated operational security without formal training. Password-protected groups regularly change credentials, use code words for sensitive locations, and verify new members through community vouching systems. Some groups have even developed counterintelligence measures, occasionally sharing false information to identify potential leaks. The speed dramatically outpaces traditional methods. A 2025 assessment by the RAND Corporation estimated that actionable intelligence moves from observation to verification to security response in an average of 87 minutes, compared to 12 to 36 hours in traditional intelligence cycles. In urban areas, neighborhood watch groups have created digital heat maps tracking suspicious activities through shared spreadsheets and custom apps. When reports cluster around specific locations, community moderators escalate the information to authorities. The verification system forms the backbone of this ecosystem. Information undergoes rapid but thorough vetting, Multiple witnesses are sought, photographic evidence analyzed, and source credibility evaluated based on community standing. This crowdsourced approach achieves accuracy rates rivaling professional intelligence analysis. What we're seeing is revolutionary, notes Dr. Maria Santos, a cybersecurity expert at the University of the Philippines. Most countries approach intelligence gathering from the top down. The Philippines has created a bottom-up model where thousands of ordinary citizens contribute to a collective intelligence picture. Foreign intelligence services struggle to counter these networks because they don't follow conventional patterns. Attempts to infiltrate often fail due to strong community trust mechanisms. Some communities have turned the tables, feeding misleading information to suspected operatives. The effectiveness was demonstrated in April 2025 when a citizen-led effort identified a sophisticated electronic surveillance operation targeting the Subic Bay Naval Facility. Residents sharing unusual power consumption patterns in an apartment complex led to the discovery of specialized signal intelligence equipment operating within range of naval communications. These networks continue evolving toward increased sophistication. Community groups now use basic AI tools to analyze patterns in collected data, identifying anomalies that might indicate foreign intelligence activities. Some networks are developing specialized focus areas, maritime monitoring, infrastructure surveillance, or tracking foreign business activities with potential intelligence connections. The players, individual assets versus organized networks, with AI-powered analysis and specialized monitoring now in Filipino hands. Traditional intelligence agencies are facing an uncomfortable reality. They're no longer the only players in the espionage game. What happens when a nation's most effective spies aren't spies at all, but ordinary citizens connected by nothing more than smartphones and shared concern for national security? To understand who's actually running these intelligence networks in the Philippines, we need to recognize a fundamental shift in how information flows. The traditional model of intelligence gathering has been reimagined in the Filipino context. By 2025, a neural network has emerged, a system where information moves organically through multiple pathways without central control. The National Intelligence Coordinating Agency, NICA, still exists as the Philippines' official intelligence arm, but functions more as a processing center than a command headquarters. Former NICA Director General Antonio Santos explained, "We've moved from a hierarchical model to directed emergence, creating conditions where intelligence networks form naturally, in response to threats, without explicit government control." The Zamboanga Maritime Watch Network exemplifies this approach. Beginning in late 2024, a group of fishermen started documenting unusual Chinese vessel movements. No one officially runs it. Information flows from individual fishermen to local coordinators who consolidate reports, verify details through their own channels, and share actionable intelligence with regional security units, all without formal government direction. This system operates like a decentralized computer network, resilient, because there's no single point of failure. When a suspected Chinese operative was identified in Olongapo City, taxi drivers, restaurant staff, and hotel employees shared observations through community channels. The resulting intelligence package arrived at security services already vetted and verified, accomplishing in days what might take a traditional agency weeks. At key intersections in these networks sit network bridges, individuals who straddle both worlds. Take Maria Reyes, a retired naval officer who now manages a fishing cooperative in Palawan. When her fishermen spotted unusual activity near contested waters, she used her military contacts to ensure the information reached decision-makers while protecting her community members' identities. These bridge figures translate raw community observations into actionable intelligence and ensure critical information reaches authorities without revealing sources. The Philippine government has adapted by creating community security liaisons, who work with neighborhood leaders, business associations, and local government units. Unlike traditional agents, these liaisons don't recruit assets or direct operations. They cultivate relationships, provide basic security awareness training, and serve as trusted channels for sensitive information. Project Bantay Dagat, Sea-Watch, demonstrates this approach. The network includes Coast Guard personnel, fishing communities, tourist boat operators, and diving instructors. When suspicious vessels appear, information flows through multiple channels simultaneously. This redundancy ensures critical intelligence reaches decision-makers even if individual components are compromised. Colonel Rafael Mendoza of the Philippine Military's Intelligence Service noted, "Professional intelligence officers can't possibly match the situational awareness of people who've lived in these communities their entire lives. Our job is to connect with that knowledge, not replace it." The result is an intelligence ecosystem that defies categorization, neither fully government operation nor purely civilian initiative. The boundaries are deliberately blurred, creating plausible deniability architecture, where no single component can be compromised without alternatives remaining functional. By 2025, the Philippine government has embraced this reality. Intelligence agencies now focus less on collection and more on analysis, training, and coordination, leaving much actual intelligence gathering to informal networks. The result is a unique partnership where government provides legal protection, technical resources, and analytical capabilities, while communities provide the human intelligence forming the system's backbone. This distributed approach creates challenges for foreign intelligence services. Operations targeting a single government agency would miss the majority of information flowing through community channels. Infiltrating community networks proves equally difficult, as these groups operate on generational trust outsiders cannot replicate. What foreign intelligence services find most frustrating is the system's resilience. As one Southeast Asian security analyst observed, "You can't decapitate a network that has no head." The infiltrators, Chinese operatives in Philippine society. But as Philippine communities transform into powerful intelligence networks, they're up against an adversary that's been perfecting the art of blending in for decades. The most dangerous spies aren't the ones hiding in shadows. They're the restaurant owner who remembers your favorite dish, the construction manager building the road outside your military base, and the tech entrepreneur offering discounted services to government offices. Chinese intelligence has mastered deep cover operations in the Philippines. Operatives establish genuine lives and careers over years or decades, becoming virtually indistinguishable from legitimate residents. By 2025, many maintain their covers for 5 to 7 years before activating for intelligence gathering. The case of Yi Tianwu exemplifies this approach. He ran a legitimate seafood export business in Zambales province from 2020 to 2025, paying taxes, employing locals, and building relationships with coastal fishermen. Authorities discovered in early 2025 that his business trips precisely coincided with U.S. Navy port calls at Subic Bay. For 5 years he methodically mapped naval facilities, personnel rotations, and equipment deployments, while appearing to be nothing more than a successful businessman. When we finally connected the dots on Yo's activities, we were stunned by the patience involved. Confessed a Philippine intelligence officer, he spent years building relationships before ever collecting significant intelligence. This strategy represents a fundamental shift in Chinese intelligence operations. They've created what experts call living covers, individuals whose daily activities provide both excellent disguise and direct access to valuable information. These operatives integrate deeply into communities, developing genuine friendships and sometimes romantic relationships with Filipinos. The sophistication became evident in March 2025, when authorities arrested 6 Chinese nationals near Subic Bay, posing as commercial fishermen for nearly 3 years. Investigation revealed their specialized training in naval reconnaissance. Their fishing concentrated around areas where U.S. submarines typically surface during joint exercises. Chinese intelligence strategically selects cover professions that provide natural access to sensitive locations or information. Engineers who understand infrastructure vulnerability. Business consultants who can legitimately request economic data. Academics who build relationships with government officials through research. The strategic placement demonstrates remarkable patience, explains a Philippine counterintelligence official. They establish legitimate businesses that provide perfect cover while creating access to targets of interest. These businesses function as genuine enterprises, generating profit while serving intelligence purposes. A restaurant owner near Clark Air Base operated for 4 years before being identified as an operative. His establishment became popular with military personnel, where his exceptional memory for customer preferences enabled him to document conversations and relationships among staff. A construction company winning contracts for infrastructure projects around Manila from 2020-2025 was discovered modifying blueprints to include unusual access points near government communications facilities. The founder had established himself as a philanthropist supporting local schools, creating a reputation that deflected suspicion. "I considered him a friend," admitted a local government official who had awarded contracts to the company. "He sponsored our community basketball tournament 3 years running. His children attended school with mine." The betrayal feels personal. Analysis of exposed networks reveals careful geographical distribution, with operatives positioned near all major military installations, government centers, and critical infrastructure, forming a comprehensive human intelligence grid, monitoring every aspect of Philippine security. By 2025, Chinese intelligence has implemented multiple authentication for their networks. Operatives often don't know each other directly, with information flowing through compartmentalized channels to prevent any single exposure from compromising the entire operation. This embedding strategy creates profound challenges for Philippine counterintelligence. Operatives establish tax records, credit histories, and social connections that withstand background checks. They participate in community events and build reputations as model residents. The most sophisticated cultivate unwitting assets, Filipinos, who provide valuable information without realizing its intelligence purpose. For Philippine counterintelligence, identifying these operatives requires analyzing subtle patterns, business activities aligning too perfectly with security events, professionals with suspicious qualifications for their roles, or individuals whose financial resources don't match visible income sources. The infiltration extends beyond major cities. In 2025, authorities uncovered a Chinese-owned agricultural supply company in Palawan that had mapped terrain features and monitored maritime patrol patterns under the guise of agricultural consulting, while gathering intelligence on Philippine naval activities in the contested South China Sea. High-tech espionage. Surveillance equipment discoveries. What happens when the farmer checking soil moisture is actually deploying sensors that track military vessels? The technological sophistication of what Philippine authorities have uncovered in recent months suggests we're witnessing an entirely new phase in espionage, one where the most dangerous surveillance tools aren't carried by people at all. Like digital chameleons hiding in plain sight, these agricultural sensors in Palawan revealed their true nature upon closer inspection. Investigators discovered technology capable of monitoring maritime frequencies and tracking vessel movements across Philippine waters. These devices, disguised as soil moisture monitors, transmitted data to satellites rather than farming management systems. Their true purpose remained hidden until specialized forensic examination exposed them. Security analysts describe this as a shadow network. Surveillance technology strategically placed throughout the archipelago that would have remained invisible without grassroots intelligence from local communities. This network automatically collects data beyond what human operatives could access, creating a constant surveillance presence operating without rest, cover stories, or human vulnerabilities. The Toyota RAV4 case represents another piece in this technological puzzle. What appeared to be an ordinary SUV parked near the Naval Education and Training Command became suspicious when its owner showed unusual protectiveness during routine maintenance. Inside lurked a disguised GNSS RTK satellite system with centimeter-level geospatial accuracy. This repurposed land surveying technology had been mapping military installations for months, creating detailed models of the base's layout, security perimeter, and underground infrastructure. This equipment requires specialized hardware, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's been miniaturized and concealed, explained Captain Ramon Villanueva of the Philippine Navy's Cybersecurity Group. The resources behind this operation suggest state-level support. Along the coastlines, wildlife observation cameras revealed themselves as wolves in sheep's clothing. These supposed conservation tools contain sophisticated imaging systems monitoring naval movements up to 15 kilometers offshore. Their adaptive camouflage coverings changed color to match surrounding vegetation, making detection nearly impossible without specialized equipment. Beneath the waves, technological sentinels stand guard. 3 underwater drones, recovered from the Mindoro Strait, initially mistaken for scientific equipment, contained advanced acoustic sensors tracking submarine movements. Operating autonomously, these drones used AI algorithms to distinguish between civilian and military craft, while maintaining depths that kept them hidden. These surveillance tools are mapping the battlefield, noted Dr. Isabella Cruz, a maritime security specialist. Their placement creates a comprehensive understanding of how Philippine and allied forces operate in these waters. From the air, modified LiDAR systems on commercial drones have been repurposed to penetrate foliage and certain building materials, creating detailed 3D models of installations invisible to satellite imagery. This technological arsenal represents what experts call persistent surveillance infrastructure, systems operating independently of human handlers, collecting data continuously without the limitations of traditional espionage. Unlike human operatives who must maintain cover stories, these systems can operate for years undetected. What we've found represents just the tip of the iceberg, warned former NICA Deputy Director Joaquin Reyes. For every system we discover, approximately 5 to 7 others likely operate undetected. This challenge has sparked innovation in Filipino counterintelligence. University of the Philippines engineering students have developed portable electromagnetic field detectors distributed to community watch groups. In Batanes province, fishing communities established hydrophone monitoring systems using repurposed marine research equipment. What makes these surveillance systems particularly effective is their integration with human intelligence. Data collected isn't simply transmitted to foreign handlers. It's processed through AI systems, identifying patterns invisible to human analysts. Combined with human intelligence, this creates multi-source fusion, a comprehensive picture greater than the sum of its parts. We're witnessing hybrid intelligence operations, explained Dr. Marco Estrada from De La Salle University. Technical systems gather data continuously, while human operatives focus on high-value targets, requiring contextual understanding. This technological evolution has fundamentally altered the security landscape, rendering traditional defenses obsolete against an enemy that never needs to set foot near its targets. An invisible web of electronic eyes and ears mapping every vulnerability in preparation for an unknown future. Prime targets, military bases and strategic locations. Traditional security measures may be failing against autonomous systems, but these technological intrusions are inadvertently revealing something far more valuable: the strategic priorities of those deploying them. The map of where these devices are being discovered tells a story that China's official statements never would, highlighting exactly what they're most concerned about in Philippine territory. When security analysts plotted the locations of discovered surveillance equipment across the Philippine archipelago, a revealing pattern emerged. Like pieces strategically placed on a chessboard, these deployments formed a carefully orchestrated network centered around specific categories of targets, revealing a comprehensive intelligence collection plan that prioritizes military cooperation, energy security, and communications infrastructure. Among the hotspots of espionage activity, Subic Bay stands out prominently. This deepwater port, America's largest overseas naval base until 1992, has transformed from a commercial zone back into a military focal point. Since 2015, American warships have increased their presence through port calls and joint exercises. Chinese intelligence collection around Subic has intensified, with surveillance devices discovered in concentric rings extending outward from the harbor. The density of surveillance around Subic Bay exceeds anything we've seen in Southeast Asia outside of Taiwan, notes Commander Antonio Delgado, a Philippine Navy counterintelligence specialist. We're finding advanced sonar arrays tracking submarine movements and hidden cameras monitoring personnel movements at entry points. The fixation on Subic Bay makes strategic sense through Beijing's lens. The natural deep water harbor could potentially host American carrier groups in a regional conflict, providing a forward operating base just 1,000 miles from the Chinese mainland. Equally telling is the surveillance pattern around the 5 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement (EDCA) sites. These facilities, Besa Air Base, Fort Magsaysay, Lumbia Air Base, Antonio Bautista Air Base, and Mactan Benito Abuyan Air Base, allow rotational deployment of American forces on Philippine soil. At Besa Air Base north of Manila, authorities discovered micro-drones equipped with signal intelligence gear designed to intercept communications during joint exercises. The surveillance extends beyond military targets to include critical infrastructure. Power plants across Luzon have been subjected to persistent monitoring, particularly transmission systems connecting military facilities to the civilian grid. In February 2025, maintenance workers at the Pagbilao power plant discovered modified equipment that could remotely monitor power distribution. They're mapping vulnerabilities in our power infrastructure that could be exploited in a conflict scenario, explains energy security analyst Maria Reyes. The pattern suggests they're developing options to degrade military effectiveness without direct confrontation.
Telecommunications infrastructure faces concentrated intelligence collection. 3 separate surveillance operations targeting international cable landing stations at Nasugbu, Batangas, and La Union were disrupted in early 2020. Advanced sonar systems discovered along undersea cable routes suggest capabilities for monitoring and potentially severing these connections during a crisis.
The pattern of targeting reveals a comprehensive strategy, says Dr. Rafael Mendoza of the National Defense College. They're gathering intelligence on current capabilities and preparing options for potential future scenarios. The geographic distribution of surveillance targets creates what military planners call a surveillance envelope, comprehensive monitoring of potential approach routes for American reinforcement in a regional conflict. The western seaboard facing the South China Sea shows the highest concentration of discovered devices, with a secondary cluster around the eastern Pacific approaches. What we're seeing is essentially a blueprint of Chinese strategic concerns in the Philippines, explains former intelligence officer Colonel Roberto Santos. They're developing detailed awareness of American-Philippine military cooperation, cataloging infrastructure vulnerabilities, and establishing foundations for potential gray zone operations. By late 2025, Philippine authorities had begun implementing strategic hardening, prioritizing critical nodes identified through the pattern of Chinese surveillance. This includes enhanced protection for power distribution systems linking military facilities, improved cybersecurity for telecommunications, and expanded counter-surveillance capabilities around key EDCA sites. We can't protect everything, admits National Security Advisor Isabella Cruz, but understanding their targeting priorities allows us to focus our limited resources on the most critical vulnerabilities. The pattern of surveillance has inadvertently revealed their strategic playbook, turning assets, how Filipinos become foreign spies. Understanding the enemy's surveillance strategy solves only half the equation. The more troubling vulnerability lies in the human networks being cultivated across the Philippines, where ordinary citizens are transformed into foreign assets through methods that exploit uniquely Filipino social pressures. Money is rarely enough, explains former counterintelligence officer Colonel Ricardo Mendoza. The most effective recruitment happens when we don't even realize we're being recruited. This insight challenges the conventional wisdom that espionage is primarily driven by financial gain. While money plays a role, Chinese intelligence has developed a recruitment playbook specifically tailored to Filipino cultural and economic realities. Small business owners struggling with tight margins are particularly vulnerable. Eduardo Santos, who owned a modest import-export company in Cebu, faced bankruptcy in late 2024 when a Chinese businessman appeared with a generous offer, a low-interest loan with minimal paperwork. The requirement seemed innocent: regular reports on shipping activities and occasional photographs of vessels entering Cebu's harbor. By the time Santos realized he was feeding information to Chinese intelligence, he was financially entangled beyond escape. The psychological toll was devastating. Santos later described feeling trapped between betraying my country and destroying my family's livelihood. This pattern repeats across the archipelago. The National Security Council estimates that at least 60 small business owners in strategic locations have been compromised through similar financial entanglements. These aren't dramatic spy recruitment scenes from movies. They're gradual processes where the line between business relationship and intelligence asset blurs until it disappears. Family connections provide powerful recruitment leverage, especially with over 2.5 million Filipinos living and working in China or Chinese-controlled territories by 20. We've documented cases where Filipinos with relatives studying in Chinese universities suddenly face visa complications, reveals Captain Maria Rias of the Naval Intelligence Service. These issues mysteriously resolve when the Filipino family member begins providing information. This tactic exploits the Filipino value of utang na loob, debt of gratitude, and family loyalty. When a Chinese official helps resolve a relative's problem overseas, the resulting sense of obligation creates a psychological hook that's difficult to resist. Career advancement offers another sophisticated recruitment pathway. In industries with significant Chinese investment, particularly technology, infrastructure, and energy, professional success increasingly depends on maintaining good relationships with Chinese partners. I was offered a management position that doubled my salary, confesses an anonymous source from a Chinese-backed telecommunications company in Manila. Gradually, my role involved collecting information about government contracts and competitor technologies. When I expressed concerns, my superior reminded me how easily I could be replaced. The emotional burden of this compromise led to anxiety and depression, as the individual recognized their complicity but saw no way out without financial ruin. By 2025, unwitting recruitment has become prevalent. Dozens of Filipinos have provided sensitive information while believing they were conducting legitimate research. We interviewed a marine biologist, mapping underwater terrain features near naval bases, explains Commander Antonio Batista. She thought she was working for an environmental group. The data she collected was perfect for submarine navigation. The targeting of government employees and military personnel represents the most alarming trend. Rather than direct approaches, Chinese intelligence employs social engineering campaigns through hobby groups, churches, or community organizations where targets are active. By 2025, security services have identified at least 15 government employees who shared classified information after being cultivated through trusted social relationships. What links these diverse recruitment channels is their exploitation of distinctly Filipino values: family loyalty, economic security, community trust, and professional advancement. Each creates compromised individuals who rarely fit traditional espionage profiles. We're facing assets who don't fit any traditional profile, admits Security Service Director General Carlos Villanueva. They are ordinary Filipinos caught in extraordinary circumstances who made a series of small compromises that led to espionage. This reality has forced a fundamental shift in Philippine counterintelligence strategy toward prevention, through awareness programs and support systems for vulnerable populations, particularly those with overseas family members or in industries with heavy Chinese investment. Legal battlegrounds. Philippines' fight against espionage These counterintelligence efforts face a crippling obstacle that few Filipinos realize exists. The country's legal framework for fighting espionage was designed for a world of microfilm and dead drops, not digital networks and corporate infiltration, creating a paradise for foreign spies who know exactly how to exploit these outdated laws. The Anti-Espionage Act of 1950, crafted during the Cold War era, primarily addresses wartime scenarios and conventional spy tactics. This creates an alarming situation where intelligence officers must watch known operatives walk free because their activities don't fit into 70-year-old legal definitions. It's like trying to secure a modern building with antique locks. Technically, they're security measures but utterly ineffective against contemporary threats. We're fighting 21st century threats with legal tools from the previous century, explained Justice Secretary Manuel Buenaventura in a recent closed-door briefing with security officials. Our current laws define espionage primarily as stealing military secrets during wartime. But what about corporate espionage targeting our economic infrastructure? What about digital infiltration of government networks during peacetime? These activities fall into dangerous legal gray areas. This legal inadequacy creates absurd situations. In March 2025, Philippine authorities identified 3 Chinese nationals conducting sophisticated digital surveillance of a communications facility in Batangas. Despite overwhelming evidence of espionage activities, prosecutors could only charge them with minor cybercrime violations carrying maximum sentences of 3 years, a fraction of what equivalent crimes would receive in other countries. Colonel Maria Santillan of the Philippine National Police Cybercrime Division described it precisely. It's like catching a burglar inside your house with your valuables in his hands, but only being able to charge him with trespassing. We know exactly what they're doing, but our laws don't give us the tools to properly prosecute. The Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council has prioritized updating the Anti-Espionage Act, proposing amendments to include peacetime foreign intelligence activities with graduated penalties ranging from 20 years to life imprisonment for serious offenses. However, political realities complicate reform efforts. This diplomatic tightrope creates additional complication. In April 2025, when authorities arrested a Chinese businessman operating a technology firm that had been siphoning data from Philippine government networks, diplomatic channels immediately filled with warnings about potential economic consequences. The individual was quietly deported rather than prosecuted, a pattern that intelligence officers describe as frustratingly common. There's significant resistance from certain political factions who worry about economic repercussions, revealed a senior legislative aide, speaking anonymously. When we introduced stronger provisions against economic espionage, 3 senators immediately raised concerns about potential Chinese retaliation against Philippine exports. The legal inadequacies extend to Philippine citizens working for foreign intelligence services. The revised penal code requires that the Philippines be in a state of war for treason charges to apply. Proposed updates would create new categories of peacetime intelligence compromise with comparable penalties. But the legislation remains stalled in committee debates. In response to these constraints, Philippine security services have developed alternative approaches. Rather than pursuing criminal prosecutions, they increasingly focus on neutralizing espionage networks through administrative measures, deportations, visa cancellations, business license revocations, and targeted financial investigations. The Anti-Money Laundering Council has become an unexpected asset, using financial investigations to target funding mechanisms supporting foreign intelligence networks. In February 2025, authorities froze accounts of 7 companies identified as intelligence operation fronts, effectively shutting down a major surveillance network. The Department of Immigration has implemented enhanced screening procedures that have identified and denied entry to dozens of suspected intelligence operatives since January. We've developed sophisticated risk profiles based on patterns observed in confirmed cases, explained Commissioner Antonio Salvador. This allows us to interrupt operations before they become established. Despite these challenges, there are signs of progress. The recent establishment of a National Counterintelligence Center represents a significant step forward, creating a dedicated institution focused specifically on detecting and disrupting foreign intelligence operations within current legal constraints, while supporting the push for reform. The legal reform package currently under consideration would create specialized counterintelligence courts, with judges trained in handling sensitive intelligence matters. This addresses another significant weakness: the current system's inability to protect classified information during prosecutions. Geopolitical chessboard. U.S.-China rivalry in the Philippines. This new counterintelligence center faces an immediate trial by fire, not just from legal limitations, but from being caught in the crosshairs of history's most sophisticated intelligence rivalry. The Philippines sits at the center of a geopolitical chessboard, where every move between the US and China could determine who controls the Pacific in the coming decade. When you look at a map, the Philippines' strategic importance becomes immediately clear. Its 7,641 islands create a natural barrier between China and the open Pacific. Control this archipelago, and you control access to the most critical shipping lanes in Asia, through which over $5 trillion in trade passes annually. This geographical reality explains why both Washington and Beijing have dramatically escalated their intelligence presence in the country, since the region has transformed from a quiet backwater of international espionage into ground zero for full-scale intelligence operations, with stakes that could reshape the balance of power throughout Asia. Dr. Francisco Rodriguez, director of the Pacific Strategic Studies Institute, characterizes the situation. What we're seeing is less about information and more about position. Both powers are playing three-dimensional chess, trying to secure advantage not just for today, but for potential conflict scenarios 5 to 10 years from now. The formation of the Squad Alliance in late 2024 represents one of the most significant shifts in regional security architecture since the Cold War. This grouping of Australia, Japan, the Philippines, and the United States has constructed an arc of democratic nations specifically designed to counter Chinese influence in the Western Pacific. For Beijing, this alliance represents an existential threat to its maritime expansion plans and has triggered an unprecedented intelligence response. The intelligence contest plays out daily in ways invisible to most Filipinos. Chinese intelligence assets have established sophisticated monitoring systems around every bilateral military exercise between American and Philippine forces. During the Balikatan exercises in early 2025, authorities identified 17 separate surveillance operations targeting command communications and troop movements. American intelligence has shifted significant resources to the Philippines, establishing what one security analyst called the densest CIA presence in any Southeast Asian country since the Vietnam War. These operations focus primarily on mapping Chinese influence networks throughout Philippine society, economy, and government. The strategic waterways surrounding the Philippines have become the most closely monitored seas in Asia. An estimated 30–40% of all U.S. naval intelligence assets in the Pacific now focus on Philippine waters and the surrounding South China Sea, a profound shift from just 5 years ago. Former attaché to the Philippine Embassy in Washington, Maria Santos, observes, "The Philippines has become the perfect intelligence laboratory. It's where both powers can test their capabilities against each other with relatively low risk of direct confrontation." The Philippines' economic dependence on both powers complicates its position. China has become the country's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade exceeding $38 billion in 2024. Simultaneously, the United States remains the largest foreign investor and military ally. This economic reality creates vulnerabilities that both intelligence services actively exploit. In March 2025, authorities uncovered a massive Chinese data harvesting operation that had compromised the personal information of over 200,000 Filipinos, with connections to government, military, or critical infrastructure. The operation used seemingly legitimate data analysis companies as fronts for intelligence gathering. The contest extends into cyberspace. The National Computer Emergency Response Team documented over 300 state-sponsored intrusion attempts against government systems in the first quarter of 2025 alone, a 400% increase from the previous year. American intelligence priorities differ significantly, focusing on understanding and disrupting Chinese operations rather than targeting Philippine institutions directly. Security analyst Antonio Reyes explains, U.S. intelligence sees itself as playing defense in the Philippines, while Chinese intelligence is on offense. This creates fundamentally different operational approaches. This intelligence competition has sparked technological innovation. In April 2025, Philippine authorities discovered quantum-resistant encryption devices being tested by Chinese operatives to evade U.S. surveillance, technology not previously known to exist outside theoretical research. For ordinary Filipinos, this great power competition creates both opportunities and dangers. The increased intelligence presence has created thousands of jobs in security, technology, and analysis. However, it has also placed Filipino citizens at the center of a geopolitical struggle they neither created nor control. Political infiltration. Spy cases in Philippine politics. This intelligence rivalry doesn't stop at collecting information. It's actively reshaping Philippine democracy from within. Behind closed doors in Manila's corridors of power, a different kind of espionage battle is unfolding as foreign intelligence services watch and create politicians to serve their interests. The story of Alice Guo sends chills through anyone concerned about Philippine sovereignty, a trusted community leader whose smiling face adorned campaign posters throughout Bamban in Tarlac province, harbored a shocking secret. In early 2025, investigators discovered this rising political star was allegedly working directly for Chinese intelligence while serving as mayor. Her case revealed how deeply foreign operatives could embed themselves in local governance while maintaining foreign allegiances. When National Bureau of Investigation Director Manuel Santos addressed the media, his words carried the weight of a security apparatus confronting an unprecedented threat. We never expected to find a Chinese national who had obtained Filipino citizenship through fraudulent means sitting in the mayor's office. This represents a completely new level of political penetration. The investigation into Guo uncovered layers of deception, extending beyond traditional espionage. She allegedly used her political position to cover a network of illegal operations, including online gambling hubs and international scam centers. These operations generated millions in untraceable funds while creating leverage over vulnerable Filipinos through financial entanglement and direct blackmail. Security officials were particularly alarmed by testimony from Wang Fugui, a former associate turned whistleblower. Wang claimed Chinese state security operatives meticulously orchestrated Guo's political career after identifying her as an ideal candidate for political infiltration. Her campaign reportedly received substantial funding through shell companies, with foreign intelligence officers directly consulting on strategy and messaging. Colonel Maria Reyes of the Counterintelligence Division explained the strategic implications. The operation was designed to place an asset in a position where she could influence land use decisions, infrastructure projects, and security matters in a region of strategic importance. This was a carefully executed plan years in the making. This case represents an evolution in foreign intelligence tactics. Rather than simply recruiting existing politicians, foreign agencies are allegedly selecting, grooming, and installing their own operatives in elected positions. These political sleeper agents maintain perfect cover while advancing foreign interests from positions of legitimate authority. Security agencies have identified concerning patterns among some Filipino politicians who have taken surprisingly strong pro-China positions on disputed territories. A senior intelligence officer revealed, "We've identified at least 7 local government officials whose rapid rise in politics coincided with significant unexplained wealth and consistent advocacy for policies that align perfectly with Beijing's interests." These embedded political assets provide legitimate authority to influence policy decisions, direct access to classified information, and the ability to steer government contracts toward companies of interest to foreign intelligence. Local officials can approve construction projects with surveillance capabilities, access security plans for infrastructure, or influence policy on territorial disputes. These operations exploit the Philippines' democratic system by targeting campaign finance loopholes that allow foreign money to flow undetected into local races. Many local elections are decided by small margins where targeted investment can swing results. Political science professor Elena Rodriguez from the University of the Philippines explained, democracy itself has become a vector for foreign intelligence operations. They're exploiting our open system to install assets in positions where they can undermine our sovereignty from within. By early 2025, the government launched a comprehensive review of politicians with suspicious foreign ties, focusing on officials in regions with military bases, critical infrastructure, or disputed territories. The challenge lies in distinguishing between legitimate political differences and actual foreign influence, as many politicians maintain legitimate business relationships with Chinese companies. Attorney Rafael Mendoza, who heads the Special Task Force examining potential foreign infiltration, described their approach. We're looking for patterns that can't be explained by normal political or business relationships. Unexplained financial flows, communication with known intelligence fronts, and policy positions that consistently prioritize foreign interests over national interests. Counterintelligence officials believe the discovered cases represent only a small fraction of foreign intelligence assets operating within Philippine politics. Their assessment suggests at least 24 current elected officials may be compromised to varying degrees. The government has responded with enhanced vetting procedures for candidates, including more thorough background checks and financial disclosures. However, these measures face significant challenges, including privacy concerns and the practical difficulties of investigating hundreds of candidates in each election cycle. Future battlefield espionage in the 20 As counterintelligence officials race to close these political vulnerabilities, foreign intelligence services have already opened a new front. The 2025 midterm elections have become the primary target in an invisible war, where the prize is the future of the Philippines itself. With mere months before Filipinos head to the polls, intelligence officials are sounding urgent alarm bells. We've detected a 500% increase in cyber probing operations targeting our election systems since January, warns Maria Santos, director of the Electoral Cybersecurity Task Force. These are sophisticated state-backed operators with virtually unlimited resources. The Commission on Elections has become ground zero for this new battlefront. Their internal network has weathered over 2,000 attempted breaches in just 3 months. These attacks are precision strikes targeting specific vulnerabilities in voter databases, voting machines, and transmission systems, like digital assassins targeting vital organs of democracy. Security experts have tracked several operations to specialized units within China's Ministry of State Security. Their code establishes permanent backdoors that could activate during vote counting, explains cybersecurity analyst Roberto Tan. The implications are chilling. Foreign powers potentially altering election results without leaving a trace, like invisible hands manipulating the ballot box. The digital attacks represent just one dimension of a broader campaign. Intelligence officers have uncovered narrative seeding operations across social media platforms. Consider the case of Filipino Pride 2025, a Facebook group that began sharing traditional recipes and cultural celebrations before subtly introducing content questioning Philippine-US relations while praising Chinese development projects. We're seeing hundreds of new social media channels following this pattern, notes Lieutenant Colonel Maria Reyes from the Armed Forces Cyberspace Command. The shift is so gradual many users don't notice the manipulation. The impact is measurable. A March 2025 intelligence assessment showed anti-American sentiment among Filipinos aged 18-25 increased by 22% over 6 months, with corresponding rises in pro-China views. This demographic represents a crucial swing vote. These operations succeed through cultural precision. They employ local dialects, humor, and regional references, explains Dr. Antonio Villanueva, a disinformation researcher. When a viral meme uses Bisaya slang to mock American military presence while seeming homegrown, it spreads organically through Filipino communities. The stakes are enormous. The 2025 midterms will determine Senate control, local government leadership, and policies on critical issues like the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement with the United States and South China Sea disputes. The Filipino political landscape offers fertile ground for exploitation. The ongoing Marcos Duterte dynasty power struggle creates divisions that foreign services are actively exploiting. Chinese intelligence has attempted to exacerbate tensions between these camps, confirms a senior intelligence official. In February 2025, authorities uncovered 15 fake news sites posing as local Philippine media. Technical analysis traced their hosting to Hong Kong servers, though content was created by native Filipino speakers. During a provincial election in Mindanao, these sites flooded local Facebook feeds with manipulated content, showing a front-runner candidate, allegedly accepting Chinese bribes, a sophisticated fabrication that swung the election. The government has launched unprecedented countermeasures. The Joint Election Security Operations Center unites military, law enforcement, intelligence, and civilian experts under one roof. We're implementing a multi-layered defense strategy, explains Senator Manuel Reyes, hardening digital infrastructure and deploying monitoring systems to detect influence operations. International partners provide crucial support. The United States has deployed a cyber advisory team, while Australia and Japan contributed advanced threat detection systems. Despite these efforts, security officials acknowledge the challenge. For every operation we disrupt, 3 more appear, admits Colonel Roberto Santos. We're facing adversaries, investing billions, because they understand the Philippines' strategic value. For ordinary Filipino voters, the 2025 elections represent more than a democratic exercise. They're a battlefield where foreign powers fight for control of the Philippines' future. As Election Day approaches, the question remains, will Filipinos choose their own destiny, or will hidden foreign hands reshape the nation's course for decades to come? Conclusion. And that's where we find ourselves at the end of 2025, witnessing the birth of something completely unprecedented. The Philippines has become the testing ground for a revolutionary approach to national security, where the line between ordinary citizen and intelligence asset has virtually disappeared. This grassroots model fundamentally rethinks intelligence operations. The fruit vendor, taxi driver, and social media influencer form a living neural network that represents the future of intelligence gathering worldwide. As Southeast Asian nations adopt the Philippines' success, this model will transform regional security dynamics forever. What might this mean for the balance between citizen participation and privacy in your country?